This is AIM Agenda. With me now, Liberal Party's Tim Wilson, Labor's Peter Khalil. Gentlemen, good morning to you both.
Morning.
Good Peter, morning first to you. I want to ask you about the Ipsos Poll. You're encouraged by that? It must be good reading for you.
We always do this every couple of weeks, and I always say the same thing, and probably Tim's going to agree with me. The most important poll is the one that's on election day. However, having said that, what these demonstrate to you is that people are looking at the policies that we're putting forward. They're making judgments, and they're seeing that the Turnbull government is out of touch.
What about Bill Shorten, that judgment? He's not doing too well on the personal ratings.
That same question every time. But the point about that is people are looking.
People are looking at the polls. They're looking at Bill Shorten and they're going, maybe.
No, I think what's important is that people are seeing that we're putting forward policies that actually make a difference to their lives. You know, we are doing something on housing affordability. We're opposing a $50 billion tax cut giveaway to big business. We're protecting penalty rates.
44% of people back that, the company tax cut.
You know, I saw that part of it. I mean, that 40% also, I think 42% also support it. So, you know, there's no clear majority either way on that one.
One poll does make it a trend. This poll, you know, if you looked at it in isolation, you'd say it's problematic. When you look at part of a trend, it goes up, it goes down. The key takeout I take from this poll is the government has to put policies forward. Sometimes they're difficult, and we've got to get out there and persuade the public about the case for change.
And the energy debate's the big one, isn't it, at the moment?
The energy debate's the big one. As you just pointed out, company tax cuts. You know, who would have thought that 44% of Australians actually support, more people support cutting company taxes than oppose it. So it shows you when you get out there, you make the case, you persuade and you articulate it to the Australian people, people buy into the argument.
On the Competition Watchdog review, let's move on to that, because underlying this is a sense, isn't it, that the companies, the retailers have been gouging consumers?
Well, there's concern about every stage of the energy market. What's happening in generation, which is why the government's looking at Snowy 2.0 and making sure that there's enough energy supply to deliver security at an affordable price. Yes, then there's the retailers, but there's also, of course, everybody involved in the way, the transmission companies and those who own poles and wires. Every part of the sector needs to be looked into. That's why the government's called for the ACCC to do an inquiry, because what we've got to do is make sure that electricity is secure, but at an affordable price. I've got a lot of pensioners in my electorate who might have homes that they can't live in, all of them, because they can't even afford to heat them in winter. This is a serious issue. Prices have to be kept low, and when you've got Labor going out there and trying to compromise the grid by constantly pushing forward policies like their 50% renewable energy target, it won't do that.
Do you welcome this announcement of the review?
Absolutely. We've been calling for a review for months, and under the Turnbull government, we've seen electricity prices go up under your watch, under this government's watch. So we've been calling for this review for months. But that's all that this government has. You know, they've kicked the can down the road once again. We've actually got a substantive set of policies around energy and electricity prices.
Can I concede the point? You are absolutely right. You do have a policy to increase the price of electricity.
No, we do not.
You have a 50% renewable energy target to increase the amount of renewables into the sector, which will make it more volatile and unstable. Whereas what we're doing, and we do have a plan, and you say this is all we've got. Did you miss that giant announcement?
You didn't let me tell you. You didn't let me tell you.
Snowy Hydro 2.0, where we're actually significantly building stable baseload, reliable renewable energy capacity into the grid.
Okay,
Tim, we've got a national interest test for gas developments, okay, to ensure that we have some domestic use for gas and a stable gas supply. We've got policies around investing in renewable energy, and you know very well that renewable energy is cheaper. Okay, and it's about investing in the infrastructure, which this government is not doing. In fact, it's reversing, going back the other way, and ignoring the fact that they should be investing in that infrastructure for the future. And we've got an emissions intensity scheme, which you had for about a day and a half. Josh Frydenberg and Malcolm had the EIS for about a day and a half, which is very much the same as our policy, and you dumped it within a day because they ran scared at the right wing of the party.
Is it all the federal government's fault and responsibility for the fact that we've got Hazelwood closing, and yet it doesn't seem there's been an interim energy supply achieved, either at the state or federal level?
Look, we all agree, I hope Tim agrees, that we want to transition to a decarbonised economy over time. You would agree with that, wouldn't you? Hold on. And it's a rhetorical question. I'll let you answer in a minute. We all agree we want to go there, yeah? But it's important that we're putting in the investment into the infrastructure for those renewable energy sources, which are cheap. Wind and solar are much cheaper than fossil fuels. And as far as Hazelwood goes, you know, I'm focused, and I know the Labor Party's focused on the workers out there. We're concerned about their future. We want them in the transition to get them new jobs in different sectors, to get vocational training to shift them. This government's done nothing for those workers.
No, but that's fine to talk about the workers. I met a lot of them in the Latrobe Valley a couple of months ago. But right. the key question is, as part of the national electricity market, there's now going to be a major shortfall of that 20%, I think, Victoria's supply comes from Hazelwood. It's both at the state and federal level where they've dropped the ball, including at the Andrews government.
Well, all governments have a responsibility to have invested in the transition, and that hasn't happened.
All right.
Wait, I think we need to be realistic. The Constitution says this is a responsibility for states primarily. There is a national electricity...
Flick it off to the states.
No, well, that's the reality, so we need to actually be honest about it.
Well, your government owns it now. Malcolm's talking about the Snowy Hydro, so he owns it.
States have a very large responsibility. Take Hazelwood in the great state of Victoria, your state as well.
Great state.
The state government has paid no attention to how they're going to deal with the transition that you talk about. And we have in South Australia a state Labor government that's turned around and said, we're just going to chuck all renewables in the grid. And it's actually contestable whether prices are cheaper under renewable. In some circumstances they are, in some circumstances they aren't. What we're focused on is not just what's good for workers, but also what's good for consumers. That's why the Prime Minister has been out there working with the gas companies to make sure there is accessible gas.
He had a meeting. He had a meeting with gas CEOs.
And we've got an understanding.
And what happened out of that?
That there needs
what came out of that?
Gas for a domestic consumption.
What about Tony Abbott's suggestion that the federal government intervene on Hazelwood?
We also
agree with Mr. Abbott?
We're also working to make sure that there is stable baseload renewable energy into the grid, which is
Tony
why
Abbott believes you should intervene and keep Hazelwood open.
Well, I don't think we should be going around bailing out bad state government policies, and that's what we're experiencing with Hazelwood. You know, we've got the state Labor government who has completely abandoned and killed this electricity generator. They have not dealt with the issues around transition. They've sold out workers. That's also true. I concede that.
I'm sorry.
The state government has sold out the workers in Latrobe Valley. We can't just go and bail that out because all it's going to do is stop them from taking responsibility.
We've only got about 30 seconds left.
I'm sorry, Tim. I mean, you know, you talk about doing things in this space. The government has done one thing, which is call for an inquiry for the ACCC. Okay, we've got a national interest test for gas to have affordable and safe gas supply. We've got an intensity scheme, emissions intensity scheme, which actually makes prices lower to the tune of 15 billion.
That is a highly
and you know, no, well, you had the policy and you ditched it because the right wing is in your party.
Sorry, we're out of time, gents. Just
scared you.
Well, at least
are you scared of them?
At least you agreed on one thing. Victoria's a great state.
Victoria's a great state.
Yeah. Melbourne's a great city. All right, gents, thanks for that. Quick break, back in just a moment.
Thanks, Kieran.